So welcome to the WalaWay. This is Imran Namawala, and I'm here with the great one and only Dr. Ray Bayley, Doctor of Chiropractic Medicine, board certified clinical nutritionist, trained in homeopathy, acupuncture, and many muscular modalities. Dr. Ray, how are you doing?
Good.
Did I miss anything there?
Trained in many muscular modalities. Let's say neuromusculoskeletal modalities.
Okay.
And it's not chiropractic medicine yet. Here in Illinois, we're kind of fussy about what term we say medicine with.
Okay, so when you say neuromuscular modalities, what does that entail? What does that mean?
Musculoskeletal.
Okay, what does that entail?
Well, for example, most people, when they think of a chiropractic physician, which is what I am, I'm one of the 4 styles of physicians here in Illinois. They think that we're going to be dealing with joints and muscles, things like the spine, hips, knees, etc. So neuromusculoskeletal. Frankly, I went to chiropractic college, the one I went to, which thinks of itself as the Johns Hopkins of chiropractic colleges. It's now a university, by the way. Because they had so many hours in nutrition, and that's what I was interested in. At that point, in the late 70s, none of the physician schools were offering much nutrition except this one. So that's why I went there, and I purposely went through very slowly. I did 5 2/3 years instead of 3 1/3 so that I could attend lots of extracurricular seminars. And my goal initially was to get people so well they didn't need me as a chiropractor. Let me focus in on the nutrition. But of course, I see people with pain, for example.
So what I wanted to discuss with you today, Dr. Ray, is this notion of pain, pain management. The podcast primarily focuses on leadership, but I would say the target audience, our listeners, are entrepreneurs, small business owners, nonprofits. But what I find is that taking care of one's body is a part of leadership. It's a part of effective business strategy, right? You can take care of your finances and your pockets, but if you're not taking care of your mind, your heart, and your body, there's only so much you're going to be able to put out. So in your years, are there certain common themes that you've seen in terms of people who are in pain not receiving the right type of help or treatment? Does that make sense? Does the question make sense?
Sure, and I just want to add to your goal to be a bit more selfish for the entrepreneur. They want to make sure their employees don't have pain, because pain means less productivity,
right?
Perhaps 6 days and that kind of thing. Overall, the main medical care in the United States is through MDs and a smaller population of DOs. And the main thing that they tend to use and health insurance pays for is drugs and surgery. Not much in the way of prevention, not much in the way of complementary and alternative stuff. Before the economic collapse in 2006 to 8, health insurance was actually opening up and allowing more acupuncture and other modalities to be used. But now has closed back down. It's being stingy again. For example, one of the reasons I'm glad I am not an MD, although I'd love to have some of their things they can do under the license, is if I did something on a patient that was not drugs and surgery, and we submitted on insurance, and insurance says, well, that's medically unnecessary, they could report me to the board, the medical board, for doing things that are medically unnecessary. Medical board in this state is administrative law, which means the doctor is guilty until they prove themselves innocent against the rather large staff of well-paid lawyers that the board has.
Wow.
So just to give you a brief story, because
sure,
you know from my experience that I love telling stories. Right. We used to have a complementary and alternative medicine AIDS clinic here in Chicago back before the drugs got good. We were nationally famous. Our success rate was so high that hospitals and clinics were referring people to us. So I went to Northwestern Medical School and Hospital, and gave a speech to the pathology department on the things we were doing. And I told her, I was given an hour, and the room was packed. And I said, first half hour, I'll tell you the kinds of successes we're having that you all tend not to have yet, and made the drugs get better. And I said, second half, I will gladly tell you how to do all those things. Second half hour came, everybody got up and left. And I was going, but I'll tell you for free. Don't you want to know how to do? And I've repeated some of the successes. One doc stayed behind, a young doc. He waited for everybody to leave, gave me a hug and thanked me for my great work. And I said, I'll teach you, sit down. And he said, no, he said, suppose I did your stuff on a patient and knock on wood, somehow they got worse. Who knows, maybe by accident.
Right.
And their family sued me. When it went to litigation in front of the medical board, all their lawyer would have to say is, did you do the usual things?
And you would say no.
And I would say, no,
Yeah.
that's it, case closed. Litigation, etc., is based upon what the majority, meaning over 50% of your peers, same degree, same license in your geographical area do. My license and my certifications, and especially you stick in my resume of 30 years of teaching at the grad and postdoc level, there's damn few peers in the nation that I would be judged against. And when I'd be judged against them, I'd be just fine.
You could defend yourself.
Because I'm doing what the majority, as a matter of fact, of my peers, many of whom I've taught, are doing. So there are things that can be done for pain control that are not being routinely done or offered.
Just pause real quick. When you go back to the AIDS clinic, what were some of the things, just examples, what were some of the things you were doing at that time that others were not doing? And what year was this around?
This was starting in 1988 and went to 2001. The drugs eventually got so good that we closed the clinic in 2001. We would have loved to have continued because what we were doing had many positive side effects, but people really were just glad that the drugs were there. Just take the drugs, don't have to change your diet, don't have to exercise, don't have to have a good attitude, you know, et cetera, et cetera.
Okay, so to go back to the pain management, I think what I'm getting at is there's a lot of people out there suffering back injuries, neck injuries, you know, disc problems, joint problems with the knees.
Yes.
A lot of older gentlemen and men and women getting recommendations for shoulder surgery.
Right.
Now, in some cases, I'm sure they need those things, but is it a quote unquote death sentence where you're like, you know, that's it, my quality of life is always going to suffer, I have this injury and it's game over?
Well, let me again a story.
Sure.
Hope it isn't
Sure,
too
yeah,
long.
no, please.
Patient came to me. She was retiring. She was a manager of a rather large corporation. A lot of sitting at her desk, a lot of not exercising, a lot of being very busy. And she had a hip degeneration so bad that the orthopedic surgeon said, we have to replace this hip. She started looking for alternatives. She came to me. I said, go back to your orthopedic surgeon. How long do we have before absolutely the surgery, the hip replacement must be done? In other words, one of the risks of a very degenerated hip is that it could collapse and you could get death of tissue. So I said, get a number. And the surgeon said, okay, I'll give you 6 months, but no more than that. So she came back to me. I did various styles of body work on her. I sent her to an acupuncturist, and I sent her to one of the best people in the United States for exercises that would stabilize the hip and protect it. 6 months later, she was walking fine. I said, go back to your orthopedic surgeon and get repeat MRIs. Let's see what the hip's like now. And the orthopedic surgeon initially refused. He said, I can't justify this to insurance. There's no way this is better enough. We still need to do the surgery. She insisted and said, I'll pay out of my pocket if necessary. He repeated it. He apologized to her. He said, never have I seen this before. You actually reversed it, and now you've got many more months, years. She moved to, she retired to a cottage on the beach in the Carolinas, and walks the beach every day.
How common is that type of story where you find somebody as a chiropractor, as somebody who focuses on like a holistic approach, better nutrition?
Yeah.
How often do you find people who come in with such a dire diagnosis, but by the time they follow up with this new set of treatments, they wind up a lot better?
The more accurate question would be, how often do they comply?
Well,
most people
yeah.
do not comply, because the things she did were not paid by her health insurance. A little bit of what I did was paid by health insurance, but the acupunctures, the exercises, let alone the supplements that I gave her, you know, the herbs, etc., none of that paid by insurance. But she had enough money; she was able to do that.
But if people do comply, they do see
high success rate. Yeah.
So, and generally, because I know it depends from ailment to ailment, but what are some things that the general pop can do to better or improve their regular lives? Are there certain dietary recommendations, very general?
To decrease pain?
To decrease pain.
Or decrease likelihood of pain?
No, I would say if you're in pain, what are the things that you have to, what can you do nutritionally?
Aside from drugs and surgery.
Aside from drugs and surgery, yes.
Well, let's start with topical.
Okay.
I trained at, it was in the 80s, so it was either Spence or Spencer Clinic, I forget which at that time was in San Diego.
Okay.
Their big moneymaker was super jocks and daredevils, the kind of people who are getting huge salaries, you know, either per event or per game or whatever, and would get injured and would phone up this clinic, and they would say, well, by next weekend, I got to be functional. And so right on the phone, if they'd been there before, he would tell them what supplements to take. And then when they got there, they would do various things on them. And I got to ask the head doctor there, Spencer, I'm sorry, I don't remember the name as well. I said, of all the things you do, what do you think is the number one thing, or number one and two, that you all do that's different than mainstream clinics? And he said, well, one, the huge amounts of nutrients that we do. I mean, literally a grocery bag full that people would be taking every 4 hours, many pills.
Wow.
And these were people who could afford such.
Right.
And he said, warm, cool. I said, just tell you what warm, cool is. 10 minutes of moist, warm, 5 minutes of cool. 10 minutes moist, warm, 5 cool. That part of their clinic was open 24/7. With anywhere from just basins, like where you could put your foot in, on through to tanks where you could immerse your whole body. The cool doesn't need to be moist, but the warm must be moist. I'm not saying hot and cold. Just enough temperature difference that you notice it, but not so much that you go, oh, the startle reaction, because the startle reaction has negative consequences. 10-5, 10-5, hour after hour after hour after hour.
For what purpose?
And he would get people, because the warm would relax the muscles and dilate the blood vessels. The cool would reduce the inflammation and constrict the blood vessels. So you're dilating and constricting, dilating, opening and closing. Well, not closing, but making it more wider and narrower, and that would pump the blood through the area. And they were wealthy because they got people more functional that fast. So the nutrient, because you asked nutrients, the kinds of nutrients they would do would be turmeric. And I'm sure by now most people have heard of some of the benefits of turmeric. Turmeric is such that whenever we look at it protecting a tissue or inflammation, we go, oh, there too. I remember years ago, actually more like decades ago, when it was, oh, the brain and oh, the joints. Now we're saying, oh, and the liver, oh, and the kidney. It's and it's okay for all blood types. Do you want to get into that? It's okay for all blood types. In Ayurvedic medicine, if you're healthy, you take turmeric as a maintenance, a teaspoon a day. But if you're not healthy, anywhere from a tablespoon up to 10 tablespoons a day.
Does it matter if you cook it?
So, yes, very good. Good leading question. Turmeric does not absorb well. You can buy the most active ingredient, which is curcumin.
Right.
But I'm always suspicious when they take something that's natural, been used for many hundreds of years, if not thousands of years, and extract something out of it and sell it at a high price.
Right.
I get suspicious of the capitalism of that. So when I've looked at the literature, there are many active ingredients in there, and they work synergistically. But, okay, you don't want to be doing all that amount of turmeric. You might get away with 1/7 of the amount as curcumin. But boy, are you going to pay a much higher price. For example, you and I are familiar with international stores,
right,
where you can buy turmeric by 8 ounces or a pound.
Right.
For, well, the 8 ounce for almost the same price as you'd pay in Jewel for a little small jar that contains a couple ounces.
What if the counter argument to that was at the international stores, maybe the quality may not be...
There is organic available now, turmeric. Personally, I buy it, for those of you here in Chicago, at a store called Fresh Farms.
Yeah.
Because we know one of their buyers, and he's assured us that they're very good about quality. I wish I was wealthy enough to take the batches I buy there, there's 2 brands that I buy, and send them off to an analysis lab, because India's government is not as concerned about pesticides
right,
and toxic metals.
Right.
Same thing with China and some others, as we are. So I'd like to be analyzing it, but for now I'm just hoping, because it's cheaper, that I not buy organic. So one of the things that he would tell them to take is actually, it was an extract of turmeric. Another thing he would tell them to take is an extract of ginger. So for example, when people come to me with low back pain and I tell them turmeric and ginger and they want to know how much, I say, well, it usually takes at least a tablespoon of turmeric a day or an inch of the root consumed. Not make a tea out of the root and then leave the pulp behind. You got to eat that pulp. But you could do that. You could make a tea and then eat the pulp. So just to get back to your question, because we're sliding off on tangents. Turmeric itself is not well absorbed in the gut. The curcumin extract a bit better. Sometimes that's a good thing. Like I just had a patient who has had many years of ulcerative colitis and pain from that. But the pain is quite tolerable because they're on many drugs. The one that scares me is very immune suppressive, and I worry they're going to get a cancer or an infection. So to them, I told them to just go ahead and do the turmeric, because it won't be well absorbed and it'll stay in the gut, and it'll help heal the gut wall.
Interesting.
But for somebody, let's say with knee pain or low back pain, for them I would say let's do the powder, although you can buy the root, and let's heat it up a bit in oil, not all the way to the point of like a temperature you would use for sauteing or frying,
right,
but definitely heat it up and stir it around, and you see the oil get colored because some of the active ingredients are fat soluble, and then that's what you consume. For example, coconut oil, if you're not allergic to coconut, is a nice carrier to do, because coconut is mostly medium chain triglycerides, and that won't contribute to your adiposity. Instead, your body will burn it, just like the keto diet thing with coconut oil. Or you can put a little black pepper in there. I tell them for a tablespoon of turmeric, let's do a pinch, like cooks do, a pinch of black pepper. I initially, for years, I boycotted the black pepper idea, even though it was in Asian literature, because of something pointed out to me by Dr. Andrew Weil, that black pepper has a bit of irritation and toxicity associated with it.
Interesting.
So I thought it was doing is making the gut leaky, too porous, and that's why the turmeric was getting in. But then, for example, if you want to go to Wikipedia, there's now cited that actually it's enhancing certain transport mechanisms. So I don't mind doing the black pepper thing now.
Just real quick, can you explain to us what you're drinking over here?
So today, because I was not a good boy yesterday and I had more carbohydrate than I really should, I today have 2 tablespoons of turmeric and a tablespoon of cinnamon mixed in with a nutritional powder that's got various things in it that are good for me. And I'm slowly getting it down. Fortunately, the nutritional powder is flavored. Not carbohydrate, doesn't. It's got stevia, which I have a few minor objections to. I wish it was flavored with ribose instead. That'd be healthy. So anyway, so Spence, coming back, looping back. So Spence would tell people to do the turmeric extract, the ginger extract. There's some things in lemon peel that are anti-inflammatory and thus anti-pain, and also contains vegetable plant digestive enzymes. Like the most famous are bromelain, which comes, by the way, from the stem of the pineapple, so eating pineapple is not much good. It comes from papaya, but that is the flesh of the papaya. That's papain. And those two help decrease inflammation. And when you decrease inflammation, you tend to decrease pain. So right on the phone, if they'd been before, they would say, order from our e-store or get out of your cabinet, blah, blah, blah. And it was 3 products, 4 tablets each. That's 12 tablets every 4 hours.
Wow.
And if you wake up in the middle of the night, take another dose.
Wow.
And then come on, fly in here, and we'll start doing the warm, cool, and body work, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
So that we mentioned, I think you started with the topical alternatives or solutions.
Yeah, so warm, cool was the topical thing that he does.
Then what's the next level? Because you said you're going to start with topical, and then we're going to go to other categories.
Well, you just heard from me things that you swallow. And by the way, in Ayurvedic medicine, you do topical turmeric. For example, on a trip I did to a conference in Washington, D.C., I fell down some stairs at night. I went to go to the bathroom in a friend's house, and I fell down some steps and broke my ankle to the point that it was at 90 degrees. Well, one of my trainings is as an emergency medical technician, so I was in shock, not feeling pain yet. So I very calmly looked at it, reached down, reduced it, and put it back into place. And then woke up my friend, and he took me to the ER. So blah, 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 the things we did at the ER, et cetera, et cetera. But just to show you the powerful alternative methods, the orthopedic surgeon that worked on it afterwards, here in Chicago, by the way, they didn't do it in Washington. As soon as I said, I live in Chicago, they went, oh, the Mecca of orthopedics. Who are you thinking of seeing? And I said, well, Dr. Dominguez. Dominguez, very good. Pack him up, send him away. So anyway, when Dominguez did the surgery on me, afterwards I said, how long am I going to be in this cast? He said, 6 months, with wires and bolts and all kinds of things. And they put the cast on super tight. I'm getting to another pain management thing here. So tight that it was actually killing a nerve and causing me pain.
Wow.
And I couldn't sleep.
Wow.
Fortunately, at that time, me being a professor, one of my students was a Chinese medicine, MD, OMD, from China, whose specialty in China had been orthopedics. And while his wife was doing research here at Rush, he decided to pick up another degree, the DC degree. So he's one of my students.
Wow.
And he saw me hobbling into class and hobbling after her, and he followed me into my office, closed the door. He said, you sick? And I said, well, yeah, I've got this on my cast, and yeah, it's painful. You sick? You should be home. I'm sorry for imitating people's voices.
It's okay.
I've done some theater. I like imitating voices. But that was his voice, and how insistent he was. I'll switch back to regular English. He said, you're sick. You should be at home. In China, we would give you 6 weeks vacation, and your wife would be taking care of you, and you should be home.
Wow.
And I said, nobody can take over my lectures. I have to teach. He took the 6 pulses at each wrist, which Chinese medicine does.
Interesting.
And wrote out a whole page of Chinese symbols, which I took to one of our, at that time we had more of them, one of our Chinese medicine masters in Chicago, Dr. Gua, Zhengang Gua, and he filled the prescription, a big pile of herbs to be boiled and made into a concentrated tea and then drink that. Most disgusting tasting stuff I've ever had.
Wow.
Absolutely took away the pain.
Wow.
Boom. Within hours, pain gone.
Wow.
And even though one of my nurses was being killed. But the thing is, at night, I kept waking up because it gave me the most horrendous smelling farts. And during the night, it would waft up to my face from under the covers. And I'd wake up, what's that? I was like, oh. So the next day, I saw him in the hall, and into my office, closed the door. And I said, wonderful, thank you very much. And I said, with no negative side effects, because it was all a balanced combination of herbs. So that all the negatives get canceled out, like proper herbology should be. You shouldn't just take one herb. It should be a combo platter, except for a few herbs.
Mm.
And I told him, he said, "Oh, you're so funny." And I said, "No, it's true." "No, you're so funny. Dr. Ray, you're so funny." And I said, "No, it's really true." And, "Oh, true? Yes, true." Took the pulses again, another sheet of Chinese symbols, another pile of herbs. Still worked, but no farts.
Interesting.
Boom.
So he knew.
There's a master of
Yeah.
Chinese herbology. You
Wow.
know? Yeah. So I then did, based upon his advice, I then did things. For example, I told Dr. Dominguez, who had done a surgery and put on the cast, about how tight it was. He said, "Too bad." But by the way, this Chinese doctor has stayed in Chicago. He's, last I heard, in Lyle.
Interesting.
Chi-Wei Rei, R-E-I. And he said, I had a residency. I'm certified in orthopedic medicine in China.
Mm.
He said, with you, we would have put on not a cast, but splints that are tied together with bandage. And at least once a day, the tissue would be massaged and would put on herbal topicals.
Mm.
And so, against Dr. Dominguez's advice, I bullied one of our interns into cutting open the cast.
Mm.
And then I would every day suspend my broken ankle, bare skin, above the steam of this herbal tea mixture he had me make. Plus I was swallowing his herbs, and I was doing things that I knew around nutrition, etc. Instead of 6 months, 3 months.
Wow.
I went back at 3 months, and just like the case with that nurse, I told the doctor, "I think we can take off the cast." He said, "No way, 6 months." I said, "Image it." He said, just like with that nurse. He said, "Insurance won't pay for that. It shouldn't be." I said, "I'll pay out of my pocket if need be." He imaged it. He was astounded. And he asked me to write out everything I did. Whereas before, when I told him I was going to do a bunch of things, he said, "That won't help at all."
Right.
Yeah.
So let's concentrate on the physical side then. What are some physical massage type, adjustment type? I mean,
Things that people can do on their own, or people go to people for.
So background again: knee pain, back pain, shoulder pain.
Yeah.
We're not sure what's causing it.
Right.
But what are some options?
Well, there's plenty of options on the internet. You can look up around various pains and what you can do on your own. But I want to take the few minutes, well, it's not so few minutes with Professor Ray, to talk about dual channel frequency specific microcurrent. It is my goal, I doubt that I'll see it in my lifetime, that everybody has access to this in their home or among their neighbor, community, whatever, so that when you have pain and inflammation, and by the way, a whole bunch of other things. For example, there's a very successful protocol for kidney stone. There's a successful protocol for insomnia. There's a successful protocol using these frequencies.
Interesting.
For depression, constipation, diarrhea, irritable bowel, blah, 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 blah. There's protocols for discogenic. That means the disc in the spine is the cause of the problem, and it's causing sciatica. So discogenic sciatica, there's a protocol for that. So let me explain what this is. Dual channel frequency specific. So there's two channels. So you're using two frequencies at the time. One is for inflammation. Some of these are proprietary, and I can't tell you, but this was published, so I can't tell you. 40. 40 hertz is for acute inflammation. 284 is for chronic inflammation. The other frequency is for the target tissue. For example, I think, was this published? Yes, it was. 77 is connective tissue. 39 and 59 are bone. And so you feed in these two frequencies at once into the area, and it's the combination of the two frequencies that cause the response. And the frequency, and so you feed in the current, so there's one pad and another pad. Either it's alternating current or direct. Direct current tends to be better for pain. The level of the amperage being used is about the same level as your own cells use to talk to each other. Whereas when I became a chiropractic physician, we were taught to use high voltage galvanism and TENS units.
Right, which they still use.
Right, which health insurance tends to pay for, by the way.
Right.
TENS units are 1,000 times this current. High
Wow.
voltage galvanism is 1,000,000 times as current.
Wow.
And the way they're working is so exhausting the nerve that it can't transmit pain. That to me starts to get into, are we doing any hurt or harm? And I could talk about some of the evidence I have for the hurt and harm there, but it's small evidence. So I would rather use this modality, and it's like the modality pretends to be a cell talking to another cell and saying, hey, let's cut back on inflammation. Hey, let's not feel so much pain, et cetera, et cetera. And you go through a sequence of frequency pairs in a protocol, like something like the discogenic sciatica, I vaguely recall, is 26 pairs you go through. Some of them emphasized a lot, some of them rather transitory. And you always end up with certain frequency pairs that you use that are just for the health of the area. For example, I can increase the growth of connective tissue through one certain frequency, which is proprietary, I can't tell you. You'd have to take the seminars. For example, there was a pilot study done by an MD at Mayo Clinic. I forget her name. Did she actually do it? Yes, she did. She did a pilot study on surgical wounds. And she did the protocols for wound healing repeatedly on people. They healed up their wound in 1/4 of the time.
Wow.
So you can buy portable units.
I've seen them.
Yes.
And they even sell them with the contact points.
Yeah, the question is, do they have the protocols, and how much of the protocols? Every one I've looked at does not have all the protocols, and often is not using dual channel. They're using one.
Okay.
Yeah. Dual channel was popular about a century ago. And then we went through a period of time where the FDA was really going after all electric modalities, because there was a lot of quacks out there, wrong machines claiming stuff that wasn't happening. And dual channel didn't reappear until the 90s. When I learned microcurrent in school in the late 70s and early 80s, we only used the condition frequency. We didn't use the tissue frequency. And so most of the cheap units out there that I've seen, well, everyone that I've looked at does not use two frequencies at the same time. Or if they do use two frequencies at the same time, they're only using a piece of the protocol, like maybe 40/396, which is acute pain in nerves. So I would rather that people spend the money to get the really good units that have all of the protocols in there.
That do what they're
Problem
supposed
is
to.
they're kind of pricey.
I think they've started coming down though.
Well, the ones that I know of have not. They've gone up in price.
Oh wow.
Yeah. But well, partly because they're bigger, because they have more stuff in them,
Right.
and they're better. But I would love it if people within a family or a neighborhood unit or extended family or whatever would buy the portables, so that one of the things you try, even as you're seeking good doctor help to make sure things are okay, like an ankle sprain on the outside, what we call an inversion sprain, too often has a fracture of the fibula above it. And people don't know that until down the road the fracture gets bigger or necrosis sets in or something. So yes, go get it checked out by an expert. Make sure that nothing bad's happening. But meanwhile, go ahead and start the new injury protocol and start the sprain protocol. Why not? Can't do any harm.
I know when I studied or when I looked into frequency-specific microcurrent, it basically increases the... I'm forgetting what it...
Well, you can increase ATP.
Okay.
You can increase serotonin. You can decrease the various pain and more inflammation, messenger molecules, the interleukins, prostaglandins, etc. Yeah, there's evidence of this. So when it came out in the 90s, fortunately, the person who brought it back out, she bought... lovely story there, Dr. Carolyn McMakin. She had been a pharmacological salesman and made a lot of money. And then she went, am I really helping humanity here? And so she became a chiropractic physician. And she bought an old chiropractic physician's office.
Wow.
And one of the things kind of in the closet was this. And she started looking into it. And she had the money to get it researched, etc. So they're actually doing placebo-controlled,
Right,
crossover and those kinds of things, and doing biochemical analyses And they just started because the kidney stone protocol works so well.
Well,
They started doing MRIs now to see is the kidney stone actually disappearing?
talk about that.
What's going on
I was
here?
going to ask you about I don't even know how to understand how that would work.
Yeah, well, I can tell you the frequencies, again, include inflammation and pain frequencies.
Okay.
But also include frequencies that decrease sclerosing, decrease calcification, decrease mineralization. So maybe it is breaking apart the stones. I mean, my skepticism when I first came across the protocol, before it had so many, when a protocol has a high rate of success, they actually put it into the pre-programmed portables.
Sure.
Or like Doc Joe has, he has a desktop one. It's kind of small. It could be portable, but it's a little big. Whereas the two portables, well, they're not here right now. I have are like a couple packs of cards put together. They're really very small.
Wow.
Like when I'm running them on myself, I just stick it into a pocket and have the leads running to wherever I want. I walk around, etc. But so something's very effective. So initially when I was trained in the protocol for kidney stones, I went, well, you may be getting rid of the pain, but are you actually getting rid of the stone? Or is the stone like causing irritation of the urinary tract wall and perhaps scarring it? Are we getting bleeding, etc.? But no bleeding, no, as near as I can tell, no scarring, no subsequent negatives. So now they're starting to get the money together to do MRIs and actually image. Is the stone breaking apart? That'd be wonderful if it is.
Wow.
Or passing, which would be okay.
Yeah.
You know, as long as it doesn't damage the urinary tract going out, passing would be okay.
Wow.
So, thus you can see why I want everybody to have access to this. Because once you bought the machine once, the only financial cost after that is the infrequent times you got to stick another battery in it. And like my 9-volt battery, gosh, I think a 9-volt battery in there lasts for 30 hours of treatment or something like that.
Really?
Yeah.
Can you get rechargeables?
Yeah, I use rechargeables.
Okay.
Sure.
No, I like that suggestion that a family coming together and getting one unit for the family.
That's right.
That makes sense.
I would love that there's more along those lines. Give you another example, but it's kind of away from your pain thing.
No, go ahead.
I know a researcher. He used to be at the Bethesda, is it the Institute of Research? Anyway, it's military, the Bethesda, whatever it's called. And his specialty was immunity. He was an MD, but he was big-time immunity. In fact, he was part of that complementary and alternative approach to AIDS. We used to share patients. And there's something called passive immunity. When you're first born, your immune system's not putting out antibodies much. So the breast milk has antibodies in it. And you can buy, for example, cow or goat milk where the mother put out the milk for the calf, and they took some of that, and they extract out the immunoglobulins. The first milk that's put out is very rich that she gives to her baby.
Colostrum.
That's colostrum. Right. But then down the road, for example, they're called whey immunoglobulins, in case you want to do that. That's passive immunity. It's not your own immune system, but it is something put out by immune system. So the company I tend to use on that, when people can do cow's milk, they have a herd of healthy organic cows up in the mountains in New Zealand, and they'll inoculate them with various things that humans tend to get infected by.
Interesting.
And then collect the milk and extract out that, and you can buy those whey immunoglobulins. So knowing that, and that's been around for centuries, people have used breast milk to help heal adults, for example. Wet nurses hired to help give breast milk to adults. And he also knew that chickens did this, that when the egg is laid, inside it are immunoglobulins in case somehow the microbes get through the shell. So what he did is inoculated he had a little farm, and he inoculated his chicken with various things. And without telling people, now that's where he got into trouble, and he eventually had to stop. Without telling people, he started giving people those eggs. And people would come back to him and go, my arthritis is better, or my irritable bowel is better, or I feel so much healthier. Can I have some more of your eggs? And it's because it had these passive immunity immunoglobulins in there. And apparently it was decreasing people's inflammation and pain and improving many people's quality of life, etc.
Mm.
And there's a long story after that of how he eventually, the government went, stop it.
Mm.
And he actually got afraid, but we get into other stuff there. But anyway, it just shows you a route that should be explored. So for example, I would love that every little community, like a block of houses, has a chicken farm, and a certain flu or cold is coming through the area. They get sent ahead of time
To the
right, and they vaccinate the chickens, and those are the eggs that they're eating.
Wow.
Passive immunity. Yeah, I don't know how much of that would actually replace vaccines, where you give the person, the microbe or a killed version, and they develop their own. But I like that, for example, for children or elderly who don't yet have the immunoglobulins. Just like in general, I won't say always, but too often for my taste, we vaccinate the young when their immune system really isn't quite able to take that and usefully use it. Yeah.
So, on that note, in terms of what we've been talking about, the frequency-specific microcurrent, the immunity, dual channel.
Right. You can read about it, by the way, and look at some of the papers that have been published at frequencyspecific.com. That's Carolyn McMakin's clinic. Of course, when this came back out, and first United States success and then worldwide, other organizations, there's now 2 international conferences. One is Her People, and the other is an alternative, Dr. Wu, W-U's. Here in the United States, when it looked like this had such great use, she wanted to make sure she wasn't illegal, because remember I had said FDA in previous decades. So she went to the government, the FDA, and they said, what is this? And she realized that if she actually said this can not only reduce pain and inflammation like TENS units can, and relax muscles, this can do other things, that they would go, it's not legal, this needs to be researched. And that could take possibly millions of dollars. And Big Pharma might step in and go, something that reduces pain and inflammation, that's not ours. And once you buy the machine, you can use it forever. You don't have to keep buying bottles of it. No. So she says, it's a kind of TENS unit. And they said, well, fine, that's already legal. So in the United States, it's called a TENS unit.
Wow.
But it's 1,000 times less current.
Wow.
And so all I could advertise, for example, on a website is reduce pain and relax muscles. Inflammation would be a little sketchy in terms of the law. Whereas the Australia's version of the FDA has on staff a neurosurgeon who tried it on some low back pain patients, etc. And he declared, it's been written down, he said this is better than injecting corticosteroids right into the spine.
Wow.
This works better.
Wow.
So the Australian version of the FDA allows all kinds of things legally this to be used for. I can use it, for example, for constipation, but in my records I would call it an off-label use and have to get permission from the patient that I'm using it in an off-label way.
Right.
Which is legal. You just have to do the paperwork. Yeah.
What are some other things for relaxation, muscular relaxation?
For pain, you want to stick on topic, or you want to get into relaxation?
Well, I think, I think the people who are in pain need to learn how to relax, right? I do think there's some benefits. I mean, I don't know how much time is left, but even in terms of matters of the heart, because I know we've spoken before a little bit about heart math, and just even the new trend of mindfulness again. So
there you go.
You tell
if you want to. I mean, sometimes pain is caused by muscles being too tight, and so you want to do relaxation. Out of all the, I mean, there's so many ways. You start going out on the web and looking up. There's so many techniques. I'd pinpoint 3. Heart Math Institute, their methods, because it's so well researched and so correlated to lab markers, for example, or heart rate variability markers. And I would say Herbert Benson's Relaxation Response, which was a book back in the late 60s, early 70s, and then got updated in recent years in this century. And the other one is Emotional Freedom Technique, EFT, which you can get for free out on the web. Relaxation Response, you can get the book through interlibrary loan or whatever. Heart Math has a website, and I don't know currently which of their techniques they're putting up there for free, but I'll teach you one in a moment.
Sure, awesome.
And but the EFT, there are websites that want to sell you how to learn it, but there are also websites that'll teach you how to do it for free. Last I knew, but it's been years since I looked, Mercola, Mercola, Mercola.com, had a link to learning it for free, because he's amazed how well it's worked on his, well, he has a huge practice compared to mine, hundreds and thousands of patients. So those are the three things. So Heart Math, the free one I want to teach you. For example, after 9/11, they made this free out on the web so that people can learn it. I learned it as Freeze Frame. They might have other names now. Freeze Frame is kind of an odd name, so they might have something that's more sellable now. So you're in a moment of stress.
Okay.
That means you're up in your head. You're all stressed out. You're thinking about the stress, blah, blah, blah. Running mind, as we would say in classical homeopathy. Your mind's going around and around and around on the stress. And you realize that that's going on. You put your attention on your heart. Now, at that time, in that seminar where I learned this from Heart Math people, there was a very skeptical MD in the audience. And he raised his hand and said, how in the cuss word can you put your attention on the heart when you can't see your heart?
Right.
And so the instructor said, put your little finger in front of your eyes and wiggle it. Your attention's on your little finger. Now put your little finger behind the back and wiggle it. Can your attention still be on the little finger? Yes. So therefore, you don't have to see it. Just go 4 inches, which is the width of your 4 fingers here. That's 4 inches, your palm size. That's your human 4 inches.
Right.
Go palm size, transverse, not longitudinal.
Right.
Transverse across the other 4 fingers. Go palm size, lateral to your breastbone.
Okay.
Come down a little bit less than that from your collarbone.
Okay.
And go about halfway towards your back. And that's the heart. Put your attention on that. And now while your attention's on that, the original instructions was to have a nice thought. Maybe a thought about your wife or your kids, or some vacation you took, or a piece of music you like. It turned out in research, remember, they really are good about documenting with research, that the best was to have a positively stated moment of gratitude. So for example, where my previous 2 offices ago, I used to travel from Rogers Park down to Uptown, and in those years, in the 90s, there were a lot of halfway houses for people who were previously in mental institutions, and there was also a lot of financially poor people who were very angry. And so, not uncommon for somebody to be walking across the street and just stop in the middle of the street and start being crazy or yelling at somebody, etc. So in order for me to survive the stress of that using freeze frame and to state it positively, I would say the going is easy, or I'm getting to the office well. Not, it's not so bad today, because that's stating it negative. That means I'm actually thinking when it was worse, or I'm glad there's not so many crazy people in the street, because again, I would be thinking, stated in a very positive way. No, not, or no, or never words in there. So again, this time the MD was so upset that he actually leaped to his feet in the seminar and said, first you got to be up in your head. You got to realize that. Then you got to put your attention on your heart. Then you got to think of something to be grateful for. I can just imagine in his life he doesn't think much about gratitude. And who has time for all of that? And the instructor said, it really doesn't take that long once you get used to doing it. And I just did it.
Wow. Because of the...
Yeah, that pause when he was speaking, that's when he did it. He went down to his heart, had a moment of gratitude, and then continued speaking.
Do you think it's a coincidence that there's like this ebb and flow of these type of modalities that come and go, and like you mentioned, frequencies, dual channel or even single channel frequency specific, that emerged in the late 1800s or early 1900s, and went away for some time, now it's back. Mindfulness, gratitude, all these things are here,
I'm glad we're looking at it, and the internet. On the other hand, in some ways, I will mildly and lowly almost whisper, boo the internet, because too often patients come to me and they've been doing something off to the internet that's actually causing them hurt or harm.
Yeah.
And too often, despite, you got my resume, it's fairly impressive.
Right.
Despite my impressive resume, they don't believe what I said because it's contrary to something they read on the internet.
Right.
But there are lots of people I encounter outside the office who learn something on the internet and their life is better for it. So yay.
So as we're, and I'll let you take your drink, as we are nearing the hour mark, I wanted you to close us off and give us some last advice to the entrepreneurs, the leaders out there.
Well, yeah, I actually, in rehearsing this talk on my own in my mind the last few days,
Sure.
There's one point I want to make, and I hope I can do it quick enough here.
That's fine. Take your time.
When I graduated with my doctorate, I had already been a teaching fellow, and I became a professor. And I looked at the courses I was teaching, clinical biochemistry, lab diagnosis, clinical nutrition, and the literature, the amount of new literature that was coming out, and decided that 10 hours a week would be enough to keep up. I could even take an article, read how it was done, maybe contact the authors, look through the bibliography, look at old papers. For example, most medical nutrient dosage articles, like let's take a cold and see if vitamin C works. They give it like it's a drug. We'll take this many milligrams and give to everybody. The question is, in a given person, how much vitamin C does it take, for example, to saturate the white blood cells? And that varies from person to person. And it's the white blood cells that are going to be fighting the cold virus. And they use vitamin C big time as part of their weapon. So we really the study should have been saturate everybody's white blood cells with vitamin C. Now see if it helps the cold. Well, the first doubling of the volume of new literature that came out was 1990. The second doubling was in 95. The next one was 99. Now, and faster and faster, now we're about every 2.5 years. The volume of new stuff coming out is every 2.5 years doubles.
Wow.
So that 10 hours long ago, many doublings ago, would have swollen to more hours in the week than I could be awake.
Wow.
Let alone even if I didn't go to sleep.
Right.
No one can know it all. We all have to deal in our various specialties with information that's flooding out. And I nowadays fly it by my eyes and archive what I think might be relative. I've got many terabytes. And some woman in hierarchical folders, sometimes I don't have time. It goes into another folder that I word search when a patient comes to me with a particular problem. I fly it by my eyes. And I go to seminars where somebody has specialized in something like keto diet.
Right.
And presents all the huge bibliography that they have around that, etc. So I know that many patients want their physician to be priest, priestess, god, goddess. Totally trust them. Whatever they say, that's the way to go. Even let's pinpoint and say mainstream medicine. Or even let's say chiropractic. You just trust in it and you go with it. No one knows it all. We all need a health and healing team, as you have done. A health and healing team, and you put it together. I have two. I have one car mechanic, independent, and I have a car repair garage where there's a bunch of experts.
Right.
And between the two of them, they've been doing very well with my car. But it's got to be a team, a health and healing team.
So the listeners have to form this team.
This team, that's right. And when you get opinion from one doctor, and you're supposed to be doing something that's risky, like certain risky drugs. By the way, drugs are not presented as risky. For example, the TV commercials, blah, 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 should be used for blah, blah, blah. And then this lovely music swells up. And you see these lovely people having love or a family. And side effects include blah, 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 blah.
Heart attack, suicidal thought.
Right. And people have gotten used to that is just how it has to be.
Accepted.
You got to take drugs that have all these nasty side effects because all bodies of knowledge are based upon assumptions, that's the foundation, and then data and logic that builds up the body of knowledge from there. Mainstream medicine that uses drugs and surgery, their baseline assumption is the body is very poorly designed, things often go wrong. You don't have much hope about to have health and healing. So therefore, why not use drugs that are risky, surgery, etc.? Functional medicine and is a rather modern title. Prior to that, we just called it clinical nutrition in the board certifying sequence I taught in. Our baseline assumption is the body is amazingly well designed. And if you support and nurture it, it'll do health and healing. I admit there are some times when it's not so well designed, like the supraspinatus tendon. What the heck? How did that get designed that way? Not that us chiropractors aren't making money off of it. Or the psoas. What the hell? That's because we're kind of a transition animal. Something's designed as if we're on all fours. If you don't mind evolution speak. But it just shows you that if you get told you need to do something dire that has risk, don't assume that that's necessary. Go and get a second, maybe a third opinion. Lastly, I am familiar with some of the people that were on the original Obama White House committee that was going to propose to Congress Affordable Care Act. Some of them are mentors of mine, and some of them are colleagues. Inside the Affordable Care Act, one of the few things left there from the original committee, most of it's now Romney Care, not Obamacare. There is a paragraph. I won't quote it exactly, but I read the whole thing. And in there it says, in every case, all treatment options must be considered and the best one chosen. Just imagine if that were the case.
Wow.
And if you judge best not only by first do no harm, by the way, not all medical schools do the Hippocratic Oath anymore.
Wow.
Or variation on the Hippocratic Oath.
Interesting.
Because just sometimes you, within the health insurance, big pharma, etc., you're going to end up with some harm.
Yeah.
First do no harm, and the other one I taught at the grad and postdoc level is second, maximize the ratio of positives, not only the targeted positive, the thing you're trying to do, but also side positives, add together, divided by negatives and risk for negatives and costs. If we use both of those first and second and chose treatments that were the best on that criteria, you and I wouldn't be having this conversation. Acupuncture, dual channel frequency specific microcurrent, herbs, nutrients, Chinese medicine, Ayurvedic medicine, relaxation, mindfulness, everything would be used.
To be part of the system.
That's right.
Where, if people want to find out more about you, if people want to schedule an appointment and contact you, consult with you, how can they get a hold of you?
Well, call the office for appointments.
Okay, and I can put that in the link.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah.
Anything else?
Well, I have a professional Facebook page, Dr. Ray Raymond, Dr. Ray Bayley, DC, etc. And what I put there, I started that because there are some things that I tell so many patients. It's like, why am I wasting their time and thus their money, me having to verbalize this? And so I put there things that I tend to tell patients. The person who's working on my website, and I just might go ahead and publish the website anyway, because we're doing this.
Right.
Enough of waiting for them to publish it. Told me, stop putting things on that Facebook page until we can link it to your website.
Right.
So if the website gets put up in time, I hope, I just might go ahead and do it, whether it's perfect or not. DocBayley.com.
Wow. It's pretty good URL you got.
That's it. Just DocBayley.com. So they can call the office 773-774-9200.
Awesome.
For, anything else you wanted to ask?
No, that's it. Dr. Ray, thank you for your time.
Oh, thank you.
And I think
as you can tell, I love talking.
I think we're gonna have to make you a staple of this podcast. So
I would love
to sit with you regularly, and we can talk about all things health, nutrition, and healing.
I would love to do that.
Thank you.
Because I taught for 31 years. I miss doing that.
You miss teaching.
I mean, every patient gets things from me. Some don't want to really learn things, but they get it anyway. Yeah, I'd love handing out information. Half of my professional hours a week are me updating and correcting the information I know.
Right.
And so there's always new stuff in my head.
Thank you so much.
Yep.
I'm just gonna.
Thank you.